Hello again, and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And this week, as I've mentioned before, I'm expecting, and we should be having a baby any day now. So we're going to go over what it's like to give birth at a military hospital. Mostly, I'm going to share my experiences and just different things in case you are going to be having a kid. Military families tend to have lots of kids, and a lot of them are born in military hospitals. However, it's just my experience in general and some tips and stuff. So, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so like I mentioned in the intro, this is going to cover birth and all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah, if you're listening with your kids and that's not something you want a bunch of questions about, you've been advised. But more than anything, this is our fourth kid. We've had one kid at a birthing center and two in a military hospital with a nurse midwife. I Growing up, just the natural birth was kind of more of what I was raised with as a concept. However, my mother-in-law, who I love and admire to no end, she is fantastic, is a labor and delivery nurse. So my husband grew up with a slightly different birthing concept, more hospitalized. My concept, because my mom had mostly home births. So when we went to go have kids, this was actually something we really had to talk out because we came from very different worlds. And where we've kind of settled is a sort of middle-ish place. Um, yes, I do give birth typically in a hospital, but usually with a midwife and a doula. And I've never had an epidural. I've done all natural vaginal deliveries, and that's worked for me. Again, no judgment to people who want to or need to do other things. I have been very fortunate to never have to have had a C-section or anything like that. And so I just feel really blessed to have been able to have my babies in a way where we're both healthy and safe and have the support we need. That said, in the military, you are typically, unless you're a high risk, very high risk pregnancy, you typically have a nurse midwife and you have whichever nurse midwife happens to be on call at the time. So as I've always done it, I've just gotten to know as many of the midwives as possible throughout my pregnancy so that whoever happens to be on call already kind of has some sort of clue as who I am. But the other thing, because you may get someone who doesn't know your specific case or your preferences, I've always made a birth plan. And remember talking this over with my mother-in-law, and she said that she respects birth plans, but honestly, a lot of people make them and don't follow them. Or at least she'd had patients that made them and didn't follow them and stuff. I will admit, most people I've handed my birth plans to have just, not taken it seriously or read it. I still do it and I still follow it and I still refer people to it. And I've made sure that it is at most one page front and back. At most. Like I have the most basic pared down, like this is what I really want. Because I just don't really want to be bugged in the middle of a contraction to sign some paperwork because of whatnot anyway. So, which has happened, by the way. Again, overall, my experiences have been pretty good. I have really been fortunate that everything has turned out. I really loved the birthing center where we had our son before we became a military family. That was not an option where we were stationed when we had our last two because there was just no birthing center nearby. And so having a doula was a really great option. For those of you who don't know what a doula is, they're basically a birthing coach. They kind of help you through your contractions. They know different techniques to help relax or get muscles stretching and keep things going and all of that. My doula was amazing. She always had like this like bag of stuff to kind of just help me out. And she was just fantastic. I felt super comfortable with her, and I am very, very sad that I'm not going to have her for this one. We have not been able to find a doula this time around that we can afford that I feel comfortable with. And so we are going to try this one without a doula, which is stressful and to me for a little in a little way some ways, but at the same time this isn't our first rodeo, so I'm just going to hope that we can do it and that everything's going to be okay. The other thing I loved about a doula is it took a lot of pressure off my husband because all of my kids have decided that 11 o'clock at night is the best time to come and figure out what's going on in this world. Um, Neither of us have ever gotten a good night's sleep. And so having a doula, having someone else there so that he can take a break and get a nap, and during the early part of the laboring process so that he's there when the like and awake and not dead tired when the baby is born has been a huge blessing. Um, and so that's basically how we've managed it in the past. And I we this is a surprise. This baby is a total surprise. There is quite an age difference between this baby and our current youngest. And so I thought I still had my birth plan on my computer and I could just pull it up and update a few things and be good to go. Yeah, no, my birth plan from my last pregnancy somehow did not get copied over when I got a new computer this last time. And so it is severely out of date, and I have to do some massive updating, which I didn't find out until today when I went to go pull it up to give you guys some ideas of things to include in birth plans. And I'm just like, oh, good golly, this is so out of date. This is so bad. So I'm going to explain a little bit about why I'm saying it's out of date. So the way I've formatted my birth plan is I have a top paragraph that just gives a brief summary of this is our X number kid. The previous births were vaginal, no epidural, XYZ. And then I go into my preferences for labor and delivery and post labor. Um, and as I was going through this, I'm like, well, I am having to be induced this time. So that's going to be a whole nother yay. So I have to modify some things on that. Um, I had my doula's name in here and I'm like, okay, she's not going to be with me. So I need to pull that out. With, postpartum, I'm going to be completely honest. And the baby, there are some things that we have researched that we feel comfortable with for our family. I am not going to be giving anyone advice on what they should or should not do medically for their pregnancy and birth ever. But I've done some basic research and there are some things, some preferences I personally have. Um, and so we have those listed so the doctors are aware of them and we very strictly enforce those. Um, the policy is that no matter what is going on, the moment the baby is born, my husband is glued to the baby, and they're not allowed to take the baby anywhere or go anywhere with the baby or do anything with the baby without my husband right there. And that is his job. His job is baby. I will be fine. I will figure it out. I will be good. I last every other time I've had a doula or a midwife or someone with me, I'm good. His job is baby because baby can't speak for baby's self. And so, um, and that has just been what makes me feel comfortable. I want to know what's going on with my baby. It's my baby. Um, and also we have some very firm preferences on things um, that we want to make sure are respected for lots of different reasons. And so that's just what we've done. And so that's our rule. And there's been times where they're like, well, you can't do. He's like, excuse me, I'm the parent. You cannot take my child anywhere without me. Like, no. So my husband takes his daddy job very seriously, very, very seriously. And I really love that because it just gives me peace of mind. Um, and yeah, so there's other little things. Like I said, I don't typically do an epidural, but I have done lower level pain medication, um, just different things like that. I have a very different background because of what I was raised with as normal as what my mom did, which was natural home births and all that stuff. I've tried a water birth. It did not work for me. I wish it had. I relaxed too much. It stopped my labor. So, yeah. I mean, you got to find what works for you. And so birth plan, I would just Google it. There are some great doulas who will help you figure out your birth plan and what you do and what you don't want. There's going to be research you're going to have to do with it. And I don't really want to share a lot of specifics from my birth plan because they're personal. It's personal medical information, which, I tend to be protective of. And also, it's very, very personal in that what works for me medically and my family may not be the best for you. And I don't want you taking what I say as, the way it should be. Every woman should have the opportunity to do the research and find out what she's comfortable and talk with her medical providers or midwives and what's best for her and her baby and her situation. And every birth is different. Every single one of my birth plans has been different because every pregnancy is different. Back to doula. Like I said, absolutely loved, loved, loved. And I'm going to say her first name, Tiffany. Oh, I loved that woman. I still love her. I think we might have been one of her last. But she was a fantastic doula. Absolutely fantastic. And every time we've gone looking for a doula, we've always looked at multiple. We did with that duty station and we found her and it just felt right. I have looked and looked at this duty station and not a single one has just felt right. And this is a very personal situation. It's a very, you know, very intimate situation. And so you want someone you feel comfortable with. And so um I would rather not have a doula than have one I don't feel comfortable with. And that's again my personal preference and that's how that is. The other thing I wanted to kind of touch on is the hospital bag. You will easily, if you Google it, find lots of recommendations on all these things you should have in your hospital bag. And this is our fourth rodeo. To be completely honest, the third time around with our last kid, I did not pack my hospital bag until I went into labor, which is probably not the best way to handle it. So with our first, I had my hospital bag packed like a month in advance and he was a week late. Um, our second, I packed it, I would think about a month in advance also, and they were a week early. My third, I packed it the night of. And this time my husband's like, please let's not do that again. And I'm like, okay, fine. So diaper bag has been packed for a little while. That was easier. My hospital bag I started on yesterday. I was supposed to have finished it. I haven't. In all sincerity, here's the honest truth. They're gonna give you these little funky like mesh underwear that catch all of the ness that is coming out. You don't need to pack undies. Just wear those. Like they're the best. Grab as many of those as you can so they last as long. Those things are fantastic. You're not going to be wearing undies otherwise. In the summer when I've had kids, I tend to wear like kind of a moo-moo-y nightgown thing home because I don't really give a darn what people think. It is freezing cold where we live right now because it's the middle of winter. So I've got sweats and a hoodie packed. I've got two options. Because again, there's fluids and things leak. You want a spare set to go home with for you and a spare set for baby. So, baby, we've got two sets of clothes because we've learned that one the hard way. And for me, I've got two sets of clothes to go home in. Other than that, I've got some basic toiletries packed. They always provide like a toothbrush and things like that, but I prefer having my own toothbrush. And I really do like brushing my teeth in the hospital a lot. I don't know what it is about brushing my teeth, but it just makes me feel a little less a little more human. And one thing I will admit that I have liked about the hospital is the fact that I don't have to worry about food for a few meals. That was one of the downsides to the birthing center. I loved them to pieces. They were great, but their whole thing was let's get you back home into your house. You'll be more comfortable. And yes, I'm more comfortable. I'm not being poked and prodded at as much. However, I don't have any energy to cook food at all. Like, I am just, food is the last thing on my mind after giving birth. And with little kids and my husband, it's not easy for him to be making all these meals and stuff. And so this time around, I was just like, okay, let's have some freezer meals ready. Let's get some freezer meals done. And I've been making freezer meals and we've been prepping food and stuff. Well, the military hospitals, if everything goes normal and nothing is amiss, they tend to keep you for 24 hours. If there is a hiccup or something, then it's can be 2 to 3 days standard. If something goes drastically wrong, then that's up in the air. It'll be whatever it is. Um, and I think for me, it's been about 2 to 3 days that I've ended up in the hospital with both kids that were in the hospital. Um, just because of little things. With kid number two, there were some things they were just keeping an eye on, ended up being perfectly fine. Um, Kid number three, they were like pushing us out the door because they're like, we have more people coming. You are fine. Get out of here. And that's fine. The other great thing is take advantage of the lactation consultants. I have always had issues with milk production and feeding, breastfeeding. I've never been able to completely feed any one of my kids by myself. Um, and the most milk production I've ever gotten was with my current last, baby number three, because we just started pumping right away and I didn't even try to breastfeed. And you know what? That worked better for me because my body just has issues. It does. And I've accepted that. So with this one, we've already got formula. I've got it actually. I've got the prescription for the breast pump. TRICARE will cover a breast pump and all the supplies. So I've got to get that all figured out. Also, the military will provide you with a car seat if you can't get a car seat. That is covered as well. And I don't remember through what, but look it up. It is covered. And maybe it's just ACS. Maybe just Army does. I don't know. But I do know TRICARE covers breast pumps. So if you need that, get it. Go for it. It is a great supply because those things are expensive. And I didn't have one for my first, and that was a nightmare. I had a hand pump my second because TRICARE wasn't covering them at the time. And that was also a nightmare, but it was a slightly better nightmare than the previous nightmare. and having a full manual double breast. It was amazing for my second. It's just, yeah, if it's, I want to be able to feed my kids as much as I physically can, but it's important to understand your limitations and to be patient with yourself. It can be really stressful and depressing to feel like you're not providing for your baby. And we need to have more compassion for ourselves as women. So that is basically my little rundown. Honestly, I'll throw some more things into my hospital bag. I'll have my chargers because I'm being induced this time around. I'm going to make sure I've got some audiobooks to listen to while I'm walking the halls because I've heard that's a thing. Um, I'm going to have I'm just little things like that, and whatnot. So I'm going to be completely honest. I usually pack some snacks because military mom and baby wards can get really, really busy. It's not that these nurses don't love you, but sometimes they are super, super busy and you just need a snack. And so I like having my own snacks so I don't have to rely on the nurses to get me a snack. Because the mom and baby wards get really, really busy. I remember it was baby 2 or 3, I don't remember which one. But we got there. Sorry for the yawn. We got there and we were literally told, had you shown up an hour earlier, we would have had to send you to another hospital because we had no beds. And a bed had literally just opened. And I was like, oh, wow. That is not uncommon. It is not uncommon to have a huge, massive amount of deliveries in like the space of 2 weeks and then have like none for a while. And it's because we jokingly call them deployment babies and return babies because that's, well, yeah, a lot of troop movements affect birthing rates in the military. Shocker. I think you can understand why. But anyway, that is just where we're at right now. I'm still in the process of getting my hospital bag ready. I asked my husband, I'm like, what are you putting in the hospital bag? He's like, a change of clothes, maybe. I'm like, what? So I'm really blessed. My dad is, because I'm being induced, we know when the baby theoretically, I mean, the baby could do whatever it wants, but theoretically is coming. So he's going to be in town and he's going to be playing around with the big kiddos and having lots of fun. So I don't need to worry about them. And I think that's also freed my husband up to the thought, well, if I need something, I'll just call someone and they'll bring it to me. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yeah, definitely packing my chargers. I'll probably pack some snacks. Um, I don't really know what else I'll do because I'm going to be completely honest. I tend to just watch a lot of TV. But I've found more and more that the hospital channels, they don't have as much that I want to watch. So I might start downloading some things on my phone from like different shows and stuff and podcasts and books. And hey, I already made my book list. So I've got a couple of those. Although, unfortunately, two of the books that I was saving to listen to while in the hospital, I've already finished because I wasn't patient enough. So maybe I'll just re listen to them while I'm in the hospital. We'll see. We'll just figure it out. Honestly, a fourth time, not as stressed, not as worried. Whatever happens, happens. We'll just deal with it. And I will be taking a break, understandably so, seeing as baby could come any day now. Don't expect a podcast for the rest of the month. Probably won't get around to it. Maybe by the last week of January, I will get back to doing an episode for y'all. But I will let you know when baby does come that how we're doing once I get out of the hospital. But it's going to be a little hot minute. So we'll see how that goes. If you have any questions about about delivering at a military hospital or anything like that, about birth plans, doulas, what to put in a hospital bag, feel free, shoot it to me and I will do my best to respond as quickly as I can, and we'll go from there. So, as always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.